and welcome to Shrinks on the Street podcast. Today's topic, discipline, part 2. I am your host, M. Gary Neuman, with my wise co-host and daughter, Esther Neuman. We have a private practice in Miami. Go to NeumanMethod.com, Neuman Method.com. Find out more about our work with Oprah and New York Times bestselling work and other projects we have in the community. And you can download for free my book, Listen, Discipline, and Respect. So, Esther, jumping right in, please, of course, watch, part 1 because we're in the middle here. We were going to go to number 3 in our list of 4, right? Of things we were going to do
to organize
things, right? 3 and 4, and then we're going to get to those details of the discipline actions that we had mentioned in the previous podcast.
So just to remind everyone, the first one was your teacher, just to catch us up, that where, discipline, we want you to take a step back from the reactionary moments, when you are reacting to the frustrating things that your kid might do.
Right.
God love them.
Yes.
And so the first is that you're a teacher. What are you teaching?
Keep that
What's
in mind.
the idea? What's the idea? What do you want them to learn? Right. What's being taught? How do you want them to be as a person? What messages are you giving them?
Right. What do they take away from your discipline?
Right.
Yes.
And
the second one
was setting them up for success. So try not to give them tasks that they can't achieve. And an example that we used was going to a really fancy restaurant, bringing a 5 or 6-year-old and expecting them to sit there for 2 hours.
Right.
So give them goals that they can achieve and that they'll feel good about achieving.
And then they'll feel successful internally.
Yeah.
And that'll build up their confidence and ego.
I remember I was making brownies with my kid. He's 4, almost 4. And, so I opened the box and and then he was like, I want to pour it in. And so, yes, did I ask him to make all the brownies and put it in the oven? No, you don't, but you want to give them tasks. And he felt so good. Oh, he poured it in.
Give him
that
the
was
task
so exciting.
That he could do.
Yeah. And also mixing. He could only mix for a little bit. So I think as a parent, you go, wow, that's great. You mixed it. How nice. Thank you for helping me. So now what does he feel? He feels, oh, I can help mom. As opposed to, I think sometimes you can get caught up like, well, you didn't mix the whole thing. Keep mixing. You have to finish it.
Or if you're frustrated and tired, it's totally understandable. You pull the thing away. Let me just do that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And we're working so much that we're not at our best.
Yeah.
So the more we practice this concept of discipline, the more it'll become second nature, and it'll be much better for children.
And I think we left off where everyone was going to think about kind of catching their kids doing something positive.
Right.
So that's where we're at, where you want to catch them in the good moments. Wow, you helped your sibling. That's so nice. Wow.
Yes.
That's
wow, you're doing your
awesome.
homework diligently. It's really
you're speaking
great.
so softly, those kinds of things. So now we're on to number 3.
So number 3 is really, for me, the crux of the whole idea of discipline. If you learn anything, it's number 3. Everything else is window dressing around how to display number 3. And that is a concept that I call "you make it happen, kid." And basically what "you make it happen, kid" means that I'm teaching my children that everything that you do has a reaction. There's a typical reaction, a reaction that you can expect from the world from certain actions. So
I like
it's
that.
not, I'm punishing you. You've made me mad. I'm, metaphorically or physically, God forbid, slapping you.
Yeah.
But it's more saying that, look, when you do certain things in life, certain expected reactions come back to you, and I'm trying to teach you that. So that's why your discipline is always trying to line up as best you can with the actual action. So if you go ahead and you overpraise, talk about the positive first. That's not a typical reaction.
Oh, you're amazing. That's
because you drew something for, a minute or two or something, that's not, to be dramatic, right? You don't want to teach your child that, oh, you do anything and the world will just go nuts for you. At the same time, if I don't do my homework one night, to be dramatic, and that's it, you're grounded for life, whatever. It shows you that that's a way overreaction as well.
Things need to connect, and even biblically, we have this concept that the punishment.
Fits the, fits the crime.
Yes.
The punishment
like
fits
the punishment
the crime.
fits the crime. Like if you're going to do something, the punishment or the consequence, I like consequence a little bit
much
more,
better.
has to make sense. Now, you're not doing eye for an eye, but that concept of eye for an eye is kind of to teach us that it has to make sense. Whatever, reaction you have, whatever consequence you dole out has to make sense for the circumstance, because kids really, they need to get it. They need to understand it. And we're going to go into some of the examples.
But
they have to make that connection of, okay, I do this, and this is what happens. And we were talking about in the beginning, college students going away and feeling overwhelmed and anxious.
Right.
So I think this is kind of where it comes in. And even if you have younger children, think about them in college now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they do a paper, an essay, and it's not a good essay. It's just not good. And they get so disheartened because their professor marked it up and said it was trash.
Right. And by the way, they're in a class of 300. So it's not like a high school class where the teacher, called them over perhaps.
Oh, let's talk. Let's figure it out.
Like,
that's all done.
Boom. Done.
Right.
Here's your
now
grade.
they have no way of handling it. So that's not to say your 8-year-old, when they bring you something that's not good, you say, oh my God, that's terrible.
Right. Right.
But, which, no, I know some parents, that I've worked with have said, like, look, I got to train them for adulthood. We're not training for adulthood. We're teaching the child how to manage on their level, how to navigate these things. So we want to.
Yes, that's a very beautiful point, because your 8-year-old is not being trained now for what an adult will be. Your 8-year-old is being trained how to handle 8-year-old.
Right. Right.
And 8-year-old, not getting a cookie. You got to learn to handle that.
Yeah.
Now you could say, if we teach him how to handle that, then you could make the case that when he doesn't, get the bonus when he's 32, he'll be able to handle that better.
Right.
But
that's
keep
true.
it
That's how it
within the
goes.
context of the age. Like, this is what's important to your child now, and that's what we have to be sensitive to.
And even when we get to teenagers, I find sometimes that parents have very low expectations of your teenagers. When you do have your teenagers, you have to have high expectations, but you're more on the clock to teach them, to get this in. So really, if you can start now with these concepts, you have little children, but
Sure.
get this in now.
I will, again, like we always divert. You brought up something that speaks to me. And
it's a whole other topic.
Exactly. But it is interesting, because sometimes I do feel that although our teenagers might be overwhelmed with work, and if they are, they are. But sometimes I feel that parents send the message to their teens, your job is to do well in school.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah.
Like the idea that you have to, bake a cake for our sick neighbor, babysit for friends down the street who need help. Like, no, you just have to be a teenager doing well in school.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like that diminishes the teen. Like a 16, 17, they're so much more than just their brain doing the work
schoolwork,
and doing well at school, which is obviously important and perhaps, a priority, of course. But I don't know if it's the first priority as opposed to the human being that they can be.
And there is this, Torah concept of bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah. And, I wrote a book at one point on bat mitzvah. And what we talk about there is that when a child becomes a woman, and technically at 12, or, if you celebrate 13, 12, 13, a girl
on
becomes...
those days, you live till you're 30.
Yeah, they were getting married, and who knows what.
I mean, you ain't gonna make it.
Midlife,
you better get 12, you better get going. But even now, there is a change of maturity.
But the concept is that you become a man and woman. What does that mean? That means that you have the ability to connect with others in your community. You get to be an adult, for lack of a better term.
And make a difference.
You're supposed to start making that difference. You're supposed to start affecting change within your family, within your life. So I think that's a great concept, Gary, because I think our society has taught us. Yeah, we infantilize teens, and really, when parents come to me in private practice with their teen and they're 15 or 16, I say, okay, we gotta move, because your teen is going off to college at 17, 18. They're really not, it's coming up.
Yeah.
And the teen feels oftentimes that they can't handle college. How are they going to handle being on their own? So there are things that you can expect of your teenager, and I would start doing it little by little at 11, 12. You can do laundry. Help mom do laundry.
Right.
Sit with me and fold. Even if your 5-year-old sits with you and folds laundry for 2 shirts, or puts it away.
Right.
It shows, and it shows them that they can do it, and they feel so good.
Right. It makes you feel capable.
Great.
We all want to feel capable.
Oh my God.
We all want to feel like we can earn our own keep.
Yeah.
Like we mean something and we're capable.
I mean, I'm not
of
saying
our
to
environment.
charge rent to your teenager, but
right, exactly.
But it's almost funny when I tell parents for teenagers, have the teenager babysit, even if you pay them, babysit the sibling. Oh my God, it changes like within a day. That teenager's acting more mature. The parents call me and say, "Oh wow, they're getting their homework done.
Wow.
They're helping me with the dishes. Like, what happened?" Because they suddenly feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
So wait, so we totally went.
That's okay, but we're talking about you make it happen. But basically, we're trying to teach our children through discipline again that there is a expected reaction to your actions.
Right.
Okay. Now. And we're going to go through, I don't have to talk about it more because every example we're going to come back to that because that's the heart of it. Number 4.
I love number 4 because it's don't give your kids power.
Yes.
And what does this mean? What does this mean?
I just want to say that Hoda on the Today Show, and we know each other, and she's wonderful. And when she became a mom, she was talking to me about this again and again. Like my little toddler, they're throwing the apple on the floor. Boy, what am I supposed to do? I want to scream. Not she wants to, but she's like was saying, how do you calm down and not have that agitation? How do you deal with it?
There's an instinct to it.
Of course.
There's an instinct to no.
Yeah. So number 4
So the idea is that really, this is a moment where you take a deep breath, and when you breathe, it actually separates. It does something it affects your brain chemistry. You take a deep breath and you separate it. You say, okay, what am I trying to teach? I'm not going to allow my child to see that they can control my emotions, because it really actually makes children very nervous when they see that they can affect the change, or mom gets angry or upset, or it really it makes them nervous, and it gives them too much power. Now we have it with young, like tweens, 10 or 11,
yes.
or, family dinners are a perfect example of this, where one kid always will make a fuss at family dinner. Now, everyone finally sat down to have this lovely dinner, and someone's screaming at it, and mom's saying, "Hey, I can't believe you didn't do this," and dad's doing, and it's too much power.
They ruin it. Like
yeah.
in a snap, they learn that I can say something or do something and get everybody upset and change the whole theme of the house.
Yeah.
Unconsciously.
They're not aware of it, but this is the feeling. They get that power.
Right. They're not staying up at night thinking, how do I ruin tomorrow night's dinner?
Although parents feel like they are.
You feel like they are,
How is my kid trying to make my life miserable?
But they know. They learn from us. And this is what happens, is that the more you react, the more they learn, noted, say that, and boom,
I hear from parents, my kid always knows what buttons to push.
Right. Well, where do they know what buttons to push? We tell them those buttons. So the whole idea of the no drama is saying that's what our number 4 is, that whatever you do in discipline, and a lot of times you have to really fake
work
it,
on it. Yeah,
fake
it,
like you say, till you make it.
Yeah, so I like saying this, and I know, Gary, parents don't love it, but fake it till you make it. Now, I'm not saying you're faking the reaction. I mean, you can feel whatever you want to feel, but you got to just shut it down.
Yeah.
Because that's not the area where you can let it go. You could call your girlfriend, you call your sibling, your mom, your dad, whatever.
Of course.
And your spouse, obviously, and say oh my God. But in that moment, you got to fake it.
Right. And fake it means that you want to have no drama. You want to have as much indifference, because the message you want to send to your child is, you've done something, there's a reaction, but it's not going to mess up my day.
Right.
The only day that's going to get messed up here is yours.
Yeah.
If it's all of ours, then you have too much power.
Right. So family dinner, what I like to say is, if the one kid is causing a stir, you calmly say, "No, you got to go to your room. Sorry,
Right.
yeah, go to your room.
Right.
No, that's it. No, we don't like what's going on here. Go to your room." And they'll sometimes escalate it. Be like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?"
Right.
And, no, in your room, and either you put the kid in the room, send the kid to the room, and if you can't, if it's a kid who's really just causing too much, you say, "All right, you know what? We're all going out to dinner.
Right.
You're going to stay home. We're not endorsing this negative behavior,
Right.
and in fact, reward the kids
other
who are
ones.
the other
Yes.
ones, the kids who are sitting
Right.
sweetly and
Right.
nicely,
So the point is that your dinner needs to go on, and this kid needs to hear laughter or more engagement without him or her present
Yeah.
in order to
Yeah.
get the message, drive the message home that, we're going on in life and you won't necessarily
Yeah.
participate.
So an example, I think it's a good example with Disney World. You always see parents like the kid totally loses it at Disney World. And number one, I have some advice. If you ever want to go to Disney World, shoot me an email and I'll give you all the real
Esther
how to make it positive.
Can take us through Disney World. First in line. You talk about your husband being mathematical. You are mathematical.
I'm strategic.
She's got passes going right, left. She's got us running around.
I think we did like 10 rides by 12 o'clock. From 9 to 12. You got 2.5, 3 hours. And then we go back to the hotel in the middle of the day.
Email her. She'll give you the the schemata of how to get around Disney World.
It's so much fun. I love it. Well, because I've learned that, kids, if you're standing in line for hours and it's hot, and first of all, don't ever go in the summer or go at the beginning of the summer. Sorry, I just got to throw that out there because I am a Floridian and it is hot, my friend.
Very, very. And we want to, again, this is your part of setting kids up for success.
Right.
People do not set their kids up for success at Disney.
At Disney, right. Because I think, look, it's expensive, it's arduous, and I think parents also go into it thinking, oh, it's going to be miserable. Don't think that way. Set yourself up for success. Go in for 2 hours, get your fast passes lined up, and remember, your kid, especially your little kid, is not going to remember, oh, I didn't go on the Magic Carpet ride, or I didn't go on Peter Pan. And by the way, Peter Pan, great ride. Don't need to sit there online for 2 hours. Sorry, not to knock the Peter Pan ride.
We've been on it. We've been on every ride.
We've been on every
ride,
many thousand times. But I have to preface that when we were kids, we had season passes, and we were there probably twice a month one year. I think,
yes.
No, only once. What's only once?
One weekend a month.
One weekend a month. Yeah,
right.
One weekend a month.
Yeah, sometimes
it
twice.
Felt like twice.
Yes. We would walk in. You would walk in, and they'd say, "Hi, Esther."
Like it was very exciting. So. But where I was going to this.
The idea of setting up for success and being able to see parents at Disney.
Yeah. Okay. So if your kid is losing it, first of all, to not lose it, try to cut the time, go back in the middle of the day if you can, go to the hotel, rest, whatever. But even if your kid is losing it, or your 10-year-old is giving you attitude and is being very, disrespectful, and here you took them on the trip, instead of just, oh well, we got to deal with it. Got to put up with it.
To get in.
No, tell your kid, if you say that one more time, we're going back to the hotel. The rest of the family is going to stay here. But I'm going to go back to the hotel because I'm doing this for you to have a good time. You pick them up. They do it one more time. They say one nasty comment. Right. You say, we're going back. And they might throw a fuss. You take them. You put them back. You take them to the hotel room. And that's that. Because
and whether you do it for an hour or two.
Oh, yeah. You can go back. But they've heard the message is that you're on this wonderful trip that we have paid a lot of money for. We spent a lot of time and energy. And we want to have fun. That's the goal. And if you're going to not do that, then there's a natural consequence. Then you could go and not have fun somewhere else, you know?
And if you don't do that, then the message is you can continue to behave this way over and over again, and it is acceptable. We will all, put up with it.
Yeah.
So when you go to Disney, try this. Get up early, go all day with your 4-year-old, feed them as much cotton candy and sugar as possible. Don't let them sleep. And have a great time.
Right.
Right.
I think a lot of parents think that's what they're supposed to do, by the way. No. I know, I really do. I think that's right. But
it was my wife who really taught me. I mean, your mother, mom, my wife, taught me that we would go in and in my head, I was calculating how much per hour we were paying to be there. So, like she said, let's go back and give the kids a nap from 1 to 4. What are you talking about? A nap? No. Keep going. I mean, I was a taskmaster out there. But it made so much sense. And when we did it that way, everyone was better.
Everyone was
happier.
Kids were happier. And the moments that you were
your
there.
Parents are happier because of that. So anyway, that's we're going to try to do everything we do with as much indifference and with as little as possible.
Right.
If you start screaming at your kid, then it's
and for
a bad
parents
message.
out there, the second you have to really listen to yourself. The second you go that you get that grating feeling, you get that initial feeling. I think parents kind of push that aside, or we do as in the busyness of the day. Look, I got 2 little kids. You're moving. You really got to stop and recognize that that first moment so that it doesn't escalate and you address it at that point.
Yeah, and think, maybe think teacher. Got to teach, you
Yeah.
know, and swallow hard and deal with that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to take this, Esther, and let's apply it to all those questions we had from part one, all those parents who sent in, these discipline areas. So the first one was where a toddler had, she looked over at the playground and her kid had two fistfuls of some other kid's hair, there. And let me play it back for you the wrong way, okay? Just as an example. Let's say she went over to that kid, all right? And she slapped the kid. When you slap your kid, basically...
Wait, the mom slapping.
The mom.
Yeah.
The mom slaps the kid. Basically, when you as a parent slap or hit your child, the message you are saying is the reliable expectation is that people physically assault you, And remember that, if somebody else slapped your child or a kid in school or you're 25 and you're even calling somebody a name and he or she turns around and slaps you, that's called assault.
That's a good point.
So I'm not suggesting that for people who are physical with their kids, I don't want to. I mean, obviously, I judge to some extent to think we could do a better job. But I feel it's a problem because it's teaching the child that the expected answer to your behavior is physical assault.
That you're gonna be hurt.
Yeah.
If you don't do something right, you're gonna be hurt in life, and this translates to adulthood because as therapists, mostly everything is solidified in childhood. A lot of it.
Correct.
The foundation. That's the foundation of how you view the world. The lens with which you see the world is how you feel as a child, and I think a lot of parents and a lot of people don't know that. So whatever feelings you're giving to your child as a little kid, that's what they're going to expect the world to do. So if you hit, they expect when they do something wrong, someone's going to hurt them. So, they could have a boss, 20 years down the line who's just mean to them and bullies them.
Right.
And you'll be saying, hey, the boss is bullying you. Take yourself out of the situation. Why are you working there 10 years? But you got to remember, if you hit your kid, they learned from the parent. Yeah. Okay. When I don't do something right or whatever, I expect to be
demeaned and ashamed and humiliated,
and that's okay.
And
I can't believe you did that. You're just I can't believe it. You're such
horrible,
a pain.
or just
You're
saying
such a
terrible
pain.
things, yeah.
So then they get used to that. And you really haven't taught them anything. You have taught them something. You've taught them that they can expect that from life. One thing I had.
You go ahead. The other thing that you might be teaching them is that you are allowed to react that way to other people when they do things that bother them. So if I'm getting hit as a child, as I grow, what's to say that I don't hit others, my child, my spouse? We're going to have Lisa Twersky on, and she's in charge. Her whole life is about helping domestic violence, primarily women, but both women and men. Yeah. And of course, I'm not suggesting that we are drawing a straight line, that every kid who's hit as a child is either hitting or being hit as an adult. But surely I would imagine logic that it does suggest that you're, making it more so.
And it's interesting, the adults that I deal with in my office who have been physically hurt, and again, more extenuating, sort of physically abused by their parents, it's not so much the pain of it being hit, it's how they felt, how their parent thought so little of them. And sometimes it was like no matter what they did, it wasn't good enough. And it was all these it's the feeling that they remember.
Very demeaning.
And when I worked with women in domestic violence, it was interesting because it was the same kind, it was for many women, it was the same kind of thing, that it was the emotional stuff that really stood out for them. That it was the connection between the physical and the emotional. It's all tied together. So you do as a parent need to be careful.
I once helped a person, and this has happened more than once, but more recently I'm so clear on it, where he was hit, beaten, with a cane or some implement on part of his body. And he would, as a 50-year-old, he would still feel pain in his legs where he was hit. He would feel it. It would be hot. It would be, he'd have
Memory.
trouble walking, having nothing to do with anything physical. But he just at times when he started to feel less about himself, demeaned, lost, he would have this reaction. This mental note was still in his mind that this is what those connections.
And brain science really
how
does
real
support that because
be.
these connections between the mind and body, and we're learning more and more about this as we go on, but that it's very strong and it's very connected.
So going on with this example, let's talk about the right thing to do. So the right thing to do is you have this kid. Now the first thing is to run over, obviously, and say to your child, hey, try to tell her, in this case it was a little girl, to take her hands out. Now, if she doesn't do that, then of course you have to physically, take her hands and open them up to get rid of, the other kid's hair, Then you have to apologize with her. We're so sorry to the child, to her friend, albeit maybe her former friend at this point, but, and the mother. And then again, the point is to do this without a lot of drama.
Pick him up. Nope, we don't do that. We touch nicely. That's
Take her
not
to the
okay.
car, drive her home, play date's over, everything's shut down. And you don't go on and lecture in the car. All you say to the kid is something like, when you hurt people, they don't want to be your friend. Right. That's it.
And that's what
very simple.
Learned. And remember, actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
So that's very powerful. And it's harder sometimes for a parent. You got other kids, whatever. But when you pick them up and you move them, you remove them from the situation, or you can even just sit them on the bench and say, you can't play right now. And remember, it doesn't have to be extreme. If it's a 3-year-old, remember, 3 minutes is
long time.
Eternity for a kid.
Right.
So remember, it has to be very consistent because children thrive on consistency. When they know what they can expect from parents, they feel much safer.
It's such a great point. And by the way, you just saw a difference in something we said. I said, take the kid, take her home, whatever. Maybe, and you said, put her there for 3 minutes.
Because I have 2 kids now,
I'm saying,
thinking
you have a 3-year-old, so you understand, and I'm not at that stage. So, my point is that there's no science, and maybe what I suggested, depending on the kid, might be too severe. Maybe just 3 minutes was good enough. I don't know. But the point is, it's good to see that you have to know your child and what the message gets across to them.
I think that's why we're empowering you to think about how your child is receiving this message.
Correct.
And what message are you trying to give? Have a path. So, you don't have to go through every scenario in the whole world about everything because you can't predict that. But what you can have is this framework that we're kind of giving you and saying like, okay, this is what I do. When you do this, child, when you hurt someone, this is the natural consequence. This is the, this is the you made it happen.
You made it happen.
You made it happen positively. Wow, you did your homework. You got an A. You're amazing. You get ice cream party, as a big example, or hey, you hit someone in the park. You can't play with that person anymore, and you made that happen.
Whether it's for a few minutes, a day,
and it's not
2
because
days,
and daddy are angry at you.
Right, it's not punishment.
No, it's not punishment. It's you made this happen, and that gives the kid a lot of responsibility, and responsibility for their actions, which is what you want to teach them. Because I have so many people come in and they say they're young adults, they take no responsibility, they take no. Well, again, this is stuff you have to teach them.
And to your point of consistency, we're trying to show our children as much consistency so that they learn the message. They're not going to learn the message from one time. No. They're going to learn it from the consistent, messages over and over.
1,000 times.
And by the way,
no, not that long. It takes 9 times to build a habit, by the way. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. I read this. I don't
Because
remember exactly where I read it, but it was 9 times to build a habit. So if you as a parent 9 times get this thinking in your mind.
Yeah.
It'll soon become second nature to you, I think.
And sometimes it's more, listen, think about how many times you have to ask your child to say please and thank you before they incorporate. It takes a long time. So repetition, even in therapy, I tell people, it's okay, I'll say it to you again. Repetition is what we need, in order to develop new habits.
Think about whatever job, whatever profession you trained for, even, whatever profession, whatever you do on a day-to-day basis, think about how much time and, tweaking went into being the best you can be. And I think for a lot of us, we're still working on being the best we can be. Yes. So I think the same thing is for children, same thing for your parenting, and you got to cut yourself a little slack sometimes.
Now, believe it or not, we're going to need to end here because
Oh,
of time.
no.
But I'm going to end with one more point, and I know we promised we'd get to the examples next time. That's
Okay,
what
next
we're
time
getting
we're
to.
just doing the examples.
Just doing the examples.
So you get practical
But nonetheless,
solutions.
I want to go back to consistency with one thing, because I think there's a lot of people sometimes that will say to me, I'll work through a consequence and you make it happen and a discipline, whether it's chart or whatever it is. And they say, oh, great idea. And they implement it and it works. And very often I'll say, oh, they'll call back, oh, kids, are you implementing the chart? No.
Amazing
no,
point.
I'm not. I said, was it not working? No, it was working. It's tiring. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So
I get it.
I have the same thing. I get the same thing in my office, and it's
First of all, you should know, by the way, that she's got a chart like the end all charts for her kid. It's like
my kid,
unbelievable.
It was during
beautiful.
COVID. It was
beautiful.
during COVID. I was trying to give my kid a star chart for everything they did. So
Exactly.
my mom, God love her, said, "Why don't you make a chart?" And so
Tell this
made
one
a
to make
chart.
a chart.
I
It's
was
like-
up till 2 a.m, literally pasting things, cutting out little, because my kid doesn't read, cutting out magazine. Okay,
You don't have to do that.
But
it
don't do
works.
that. It worked,
works,
but
it
you don't
doesn't
have
be that
to. You
elaborate.
can just stick a star. And
The kid just likes the stars. It's okay.
You can just give them the star. My kid is like, wakes up in the morning, can I have a star? And so we don't really,
Good enough.
All right.
But nonetheless,
anyway,
the consistency is that a lot of times it's hard, so people drop off.
yeah, but
right?
I say to parents that when you drop off, when you don't do it, think about how much more energy it's going to take you, and it takes to yell at them, get annoyed. That grittiness. Yes, it's easier sometimes, but it's gonna take a lot more energy than making your charts, than following through on it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great point, because at the moment it feels like I cannot believe it. I have to leave the grocery store with all of my items. To pick an example, to take my kid outside and maybe take him or her home to teach a lesson. But
Right.
something. If you do that once, twice, 3 times, guess what?
Yeah.
You don't have to do it the rest of your life.
Or saying no to a teenager. No, you screamed at me. You can't go out with your friends. You just that's not you're not in that headspace to do that.
Or you made it happen. You can't scream at me and then say to me, "Oh, will you drive me to my friends?"
Yes.
Well, really? When you scream at somebody, that doesn't engender the feeling that I now want to go out of my way to do that. So you made this happen.
I think it comes from a loving place. I think parents, we want to give and give, and we don't want our kids to feel sad. But we have to remember, what are we teaching them? What are we? You made it happen. What is that happen? What is that? What are they making happen?
Right.
And if they're making happen where they get to scream at you, and then you drive them to your friend's house because they said, "I'm sorry," well, they're not 3 years old anymore.
Right.
They're a young adult, and they have to understand that. So you might have a tantrum for your teenager, and they might get surly and angry. But
in the long run, it'll make such a difference.
3 times is really all you have to do to show. That's not going to fly
is a
here.
line.
This is how, and this is how we
line.
act as a family. We're kind to each other. We love each other, and this is what. Right, you're drawing
and
that
I want
line.
to tell you, I've dealt with people. You can't imagine teenagers who are the nastiest people. They throw things at their parents, at their siblings, and the parent doesn't want to, for whatever reason, upset them. They have their own issues. It just encourages this awful behavior, and the child can, in a dramatic way, can become abusive.
And that's something that I think you should. You made a good point too, that when you have when you have your own issues, right?
Yes.
Or that your parenting or your discipline is affecting your teenager and your parenting, take a look at that. Speak to, a mentor or a psychologist just to kind of work that out a little bit.
Excellent. Okay, well, we're going to pick up with part 3. We're going to get through a lot of the examples. I also want to talk about happiness. Remind me, Esther, to talk about happiness, and if that's the goal, jot it down somewhere. Anyway, love being with you. Go to NeumanMethod.com, Neuman Method.com. Find out more about our work. Send us your questions, thoughts, ideas. Also, by the way, if you have any personal questions that you'd like, psychologists to respond and give you an answer, our best shot at it, we would love to have that opportunity for you as well. And we look forward to seeing you next time.